Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, this year's Nobel Peace Prize winners condemn global indifference to wartime sexual violence while pleading for new efforts to punish those responsible. And with no clear sign of any resolution soon to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I talked to Palestinian activist Huda Abuarquob about the role of women in the peacemaking process. Plus, we meet Norwegian footballer Huda Hegerberg, who won the first ever Ballon d'Or for a female player. Now, in the year the Me Too movement focused global attention on sexual abuse, the 2018 Nobel Peace Prize has acknowledged the work of two people who've campaigned to end mass rape in war. Huda Abuarquob and Dr. Huda Abuarquob both jointly won the prize. A Yazidi woman who was forced into sexual slavery by the Islamic State group, Huda Abuarquob has worked tirelessly to remind the world of her community's plight. Dr. Abuarquob, a surgeon from the Democratic Republic of Congo, has also treated thousands of female rape survivors in his country. This is what the two had to say when they accepted the award.
Agir, c'est un choix.
It is a choice whether or not to support a woman, whether or not to protect her, whether or not to defend her rights, whether or not to fight on her side in countries ravaged by conflict. It is a choice whether or not to build peace in the countries in conflict.
Thank you very much for this honour. But the fact remains that the only prize in the world that can restore our dignity is justice and the prosecution of criminals. There is no award that can compensate for our people and our loved ones who were killed solely because they were Yazidis. The only prize that will restore a normal life between our people and our friends is justice and protection for the rest of the community.
In the meantime, many Yazidi rape victims went on to bear children from their captors. As a result, they're facing isolation from their own community, as this report reveals.
Shada Salim is a Yazidi survivor. After an Islamic State fighter in Syria raped her, she got pregnant. As she explains, her pregnancy was the only thing stopping other men from raping her again.
None of the Yazidi girls and women liked to have children from IS men. But because women were treated like property, they were given to IS fighters who would savagely rape them. And by the evening, they would then be passed on to another man to be raped again. That's why Yazidi women would accept having babies from an IS man.
Over the time she spent in Syria, Salim says she was raped by 12 different men. When her owner realized she was pregnant, he stopped selling her for sex. Salim has since aborted her child and is now reunited with her family in Iraq, but many Yazidi women aren't so lucky.
There are many women in this situation, and honestly, their lives are torture. They cannot come home and be united with their families because they're pregnant with an IS militant's child.
For mothers who, unlike Salim, cannot return to their families, Gulanisani in northern Iraq is one of the few safe houses to offer them refuge. Here, volunteer teams provide professional training, but also medical care and psychological support.
We have an atmosphere of respect, and I think above everything, that is the most important thing, to be in an environment where you are respected and loved.
In the past 5 years, the center has hosted some 150 women and their children.
Now, more than a year ago, a rare event occurred in the Middle East. Thousands of Israeli and Palestinian women marching for peace throughout Israel and the West Bank made their way to Jerusalem. Organised by Women Wage Peace, more than 30,000 marched throughout Israel and Palestine, demanding an end to the conflict. Among them was Huda Abuarquob, a Palestinian activist from Hebron and regional director for the Alliance for Middle East Peace. And she joins me today in the studio. Huda, thank you so much for your time. Now, as a former Middle East correspondent who spent many years in the region, I have to ask you, after seemingly endless conflict, we now have a stalemate in peace talks. How do you maintain your positivity?
From women and youth in Palestine and in Israel who are not given in to despair. Women are the ones who are shaking the grounds in Israel and Palestine, changing the narrative about Israelis and Palestinians. It's not only about the polarization and the right and wrong. It's about an effort of human beings, especially women, who need to be brought to the table. Their voices must be heard, and I see that coming more and more. The more the situation, politically speaking, is bad, women come forward.
Now, Palestinian women were very much present during the first Intifada. 25 years on, that's certainly not the case. Why have they been sidelined?
Because this is how politics work in conflict zones. It's always the men who call the shots. And I think this is one major issue that is not looked at in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that women were completely excluded, especially in the 80s, when the wave of religious extremism came and women were asked to stay home. We were always in the streets. We were always holding the grounds for the men who were not around. And now we are not necessarily brought to the table, and I think it's time.
But what does their absence at the table mean for the Palestinian cause?
First of all, the lack of creativity when it comes to coming to solutions, the sense and the feeling that women have for needs, and the vision for future. And I might add also the fact that women are not brought because they are the ones who move things forward. They don't give in to installment.
So I would assume that you would agree that women do make better peacemakers.
Of course, because they have the willingness and the mechanism and sometimes, and in many cases, the strategy to move forward. They have so much on stake. And one of those are their sons and daughters who are paying the price for this conflict.
Are there Israeli women that you've met with who you connect with on this level, who you feel together you can work towards some sort of an agreement?
In one day, 40 women, Israeli and Palestinians, were not talking about themselves as Israeli and Palestinians. They were talking about a group of women who's going to change the dynamics of this conflict and reclaim life and hope back to our lives.
So how do you make that happen? How do you get those women involved to the point where their voices are in fact being heard?
Focusing on the future. What is it that we need for us in order to live in a dignified community that acknowledges the women's participation fully and rights in deciding the future of Palestine.
But if you look at the Palestinians and the Israelis, and in terms of political leadership, it's all dominated very much by men, and men of a certain age.
So we need to act now in order to help the future have people who are not the same as we have now.
So how do you do that?
You coach the new generation. You teach them how to be feminist, inclusive political activists and leaders.
Now, this is a region that I see as being full of hatred and violence on all sides. Is there a glimmer of hope at all?
Of course. We cannot afford losing hope, especially women. This is our survivorhood mechanism. And for the Palestinians, steadfastness means that we have to continue hoping that the future is going to change. And my goal now, at least at this point, is to include more young female and male Palestinians into the conversation. Because what we are experiencing now is that sense of apathy and loss of a collective story for the Palestinians. And it's about time to reclaim it.
And are you getting the sense that there are young Palestinian men who are interested in hearing what you have to say as a woman?
More than you can think and more than what I can handle as one person who's working with young refugees from refugee camps who are talking about different strategies to approach the right of return. I think it's time to listen to those. The middle age in the West Bank is 20 and in Gaza is 16, and we don't mention Gaza that often, but it's time to have young leaders among us who speak the language of today.
Huda, it's been great speaking to you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
To some sports news now, and Brazilian soccer superstar Marta Vieira da Silva has become the first woman to enter the Maracana Stadium Hall of Fame. The 32-year-old says she hopes her entry will inspire other women to follow in her steps. In the meantime, our reporters have met Norwegian footballer Huda Hegerberg, who was recently crowned the first ever female Ballon d'Or winner. But the event was marred by the French host when he asked the Norwegian to twerk on stage. He was met with a resolute no. Wasim Cornet and Sarah Missawi have more.
Sometimes I just take it out to show it to my friends, or even to my family, on FaceTime.
It's the first Ballon d'Or ever awarded to a woman, a personal reward which Huda Hegerberg has decided to share.
I want to keep it here at the club so that everyone can see it, and we're going to place it in the team's museum.
And at the Olympique Lyonnais Museum, visitors can already see Huda's incredible journey within the team. At just 23 years old, her statistics are similar to those of football's greatest. She's a 4-time French champion, has won the Women's Champions League 3 times, and has scored more than 180 goals. The Norwegian forward began playing football at a young age and has never stopped chasing her dreams.
I want to tell young girls all over the world that it's possible. You know, I was born in a small village with a population of just 7,000, and I've managed to win the Ballon d'Or.
A female Ballon d'Or award which finally recognizes the talent of women football players.
It's not only about me, it's about all the young girls who play football, about women who work hard to succeed, and about women's football in general. That night was a victory for all of us.
Her big night was tarnished by one of the French hosts asking her whether she knew how to twerk. Her answer was an icy no, and she tells us the controversy is now completely forgotten.
And finally, the 51% team, along with our French sister show Actuel, are very honoured to have received the 2018 gold medal in broadcast journalism for the Ricardo Ortega Prize, awarded by the UN Correspondents Association at a ceremony in New York recently. A big thank you to all of our team, our fellow France 24 colleagues, and also the people behind the camera who help get this show to air every week. And not forgetting you, the viewer, that is, for your ongoing support. And that's it for now. So until our next show, bye.